Take it off. Let's do it. Clara's voice is hoarse but firm. Elias freezes, the knife still in his wet hand. In the slant of late light, the three girls stand before him, clothes caked with dust and dried blood, breathing hard. You two, take off your trousers. Now, she says, eyes locked on the bruises running down her sister's legs. We have to clean this, or it'll get infected. The air goes dead still. When the filthy cloth peels away, gashes and purple blooms show, one cut open wide and weeping. Elias swallows, lowering his gaze. Not from shame, but because his chest tightens. These are the three daughters of his dearest friend, alive after 2 days of hell, after a long road of hunger and pain and skin torn raw. He never imagined meeting them like this. And a colder fear slides in, because now he worries their father is hanging on by a thread, if he is alive at all. The moment holds. Cicadas stutter and fall quiet. Clara dips a rag into the basin and steadies her hands. Duty braces her. May grips Lydia's calf and whispers, "Count of 3." Lydia nods and stares through the porch rail, like the horizon might answer back. Elias sets the knife aside and brings the bucket closer. He moves like a man who has done this in bad places. He tosses linen into boiling water. Steam rises. The smell of iron and lye and road dust rides the heat. Short strokes, he says, calm and sure. From the wound out. Don't push grit back in. Clara copies him. Her wrist trembles once, then locks steady. He checks for heat, for swelling. He cleans the cut on Lydia's thigh, wraps it flat, ties the knot neat so it will not rub. He looks at May's hip, mottled and dark, then at Clara's ankle, already puffed. Sprain, he says. You ran on it anyway. Clara gives a quick nod. No complaint. Only the work. Smoke hangs far off where the Whitlock place should be. He does not name it. Not yet. He works and keeps talking, because order is a kind of mercy. You'll eat, he says. You'll sleep. At first light, I go look. Clara's mouth tightens. If he's alive, she says, and the words tear on the way out. If there's any chance. Elias meets her eyes. If there's breath, he answers, I'll find it. He braces Clara's ankle with a strip and a stick. He hands May a tin cup and tells her to sip slow. He drapes a blanket over Lydia's legs so the night will not bite when it comes. The porch takes on a hush. Dust Creek keeps whispering under the cottonwoods. Somewhere a hawk calls once and is gone. For this hour, he gives them ground to stand on. Water, cloth, bread, a roof, and a promise. You're safe here, he says, voice like a whetstone on steel. For as long as I can make it so. They eat in small bites. Hard bread, a little jerky, water that tastes like tin and mercy. When the worst of the shaking passes, Clara looks at Elias and nods once. The porch lantern throws a warm ring on their faces. The rest is shadow. They came after sundown, she says. Riders. Lanterns swinging. We heard the dogs first. May's fingers curl around the cup. He pushed us toward the barn, she adds. Said we were to run for Dust Creek and not look back. Lydia stares at the floorboards. He told me to take the small Bible, she whispers. I forgot it. Elias keeps his eyes on the horizon and lets them talk. He learns in pieces. Men at the fence. Shouts. A shot at the door. Their father's voice, steady once and then not steady at all. They ran through mesquite and cholla and black air that bit the lungs. They fell. They crawled. They hid in a wash and drank mud. They waited for dawn and then another day. When they stood, The world leaned. Clara reaches into her torn bodice and brings out a fold of oilskin. She sets it on the porch between them. "He gave me this," she says. "Said it was nothing if he was wrong, and everything if he was right." Elias does not touch it yet. The oilskin holds shape like a secret. He sees a corner of old paper. He smells the faint ghost of pine pitch and smoke. "He told us your name," May says. "Said Red Ridge and the man who lived alone. Said you would keep us breathing." Lydia lifts her chin. "He said you were stubborn as mules," she adds. A flicker tries to be a smile and fails. Elias breathes once and feels the old ache shift. "Your father and I ran cattle together," he says. "He pulled me out of a river I had no business crossing. I owe him more than I can pay." He picks up the oilskin and weighs it in his palm. He does not unfold it. "Not tonight." "Sleep inside," he says. "Bolt the back door. Keep the rifle by the hearth." He points to the pegs by the wall. "Blankets there. Extra shirts. You can have my room." Clara shakes her head, but he does not argue it. He stands, and the chair creaks. "At first light, I ride," he says. "I will see what stands at the Whitlock place. I will look for him. I will look for sign." Clara rises with the slow care of someone older than her years. "If he is gone," she says, voice thin, "tell us straight." Elias nods. "Straight," he says. They move inside. Boots off. Bandages set. The lantern goes low. Outside, Dust Creek keeps its small song. Smoke hangs on the far ridge like a promise and a threat. Elias sits alone for 1 minute more and sharpens the knife edge that nicked on Lydia's buckle. He lays out his saddle and a canteen and 1 clean cloth. Then he blows the lantern out and waits for the light. Dawn comes thin and pale. Elias saddles in the gray, checks the cinch twice, checks the rifle once. The girls are asleep behind a bolted door. He leaves a note on the table. Bread. Water. Do not answer a knock unless it is his voice. He rides toward the smoke line where the Whitlock place should be. The creek runs cool for 100 yards. Then the land lifts. Then the red rises up in low hills that hold heat even at first light. He keeps to the mesquite and the shadow of cottonwoods. He listens for hoof clatter that does not belong to him. He hears only a hawk and a jackrabbit and the slow rasp of his own horse. The air smells like wet ash and scorched prickly pear. At the fence line, he dismounts and leads the horse through a break where rails lie kicked flat. Fresh. Boot prints over the dust. Wagon ruts cutting the earth like claws. The house is a black shape. The roof is gone. The stone chimney stands like a grave marker. Elias circles wide. He sees a place where a lantern fell. The pattern of the burn tells him which way the wind blew last night. He sees 2 spent cartridges in the hard pan by the porch. 44. Another near the corral. He pockets them. He has learned to carry little truths. At the barn door, he crouches. Rope fibers on a splinter. A smudge of blood at shoulder height. Not much. A man dragged or shoved. He looks for a body and does not find one. He finds a boot heel mark that turns twice and stops as if the wearer buckled. He finds a patch where many hooves milled. He finds tracks steering west, then south, then scattered as if someone did not want a straight story told. He reads what he can. He lets the rest go. He walks the creek bend behind the house. Here he finds a girl's footprint in the mud, small and splayed, 2 days old. Beside it, a half print from a second girl, then nothing, then a slip where someone fell and caught herself on both hands. He can see Clara in that mark, set jaw, push up, keep moving. He stands a long breath and lets the morning talk. When it is done, he knows at least this: they ran the right way. The father stayed. He moves to the north side where the wind stacked ash in low drifts. Under one drift, he finds a scorched button that belonged to a work shirt. He turns it in his palm. He puts it back. He will not carry a piece of a man until he knows the man is gone. He walks to the far shed and finds hoof resin scraped on the jamb. He thinks Jonas Pike and feels the old heat. He cools it. Work first. Rage later. By mid-morning, the light goes hard. He waters the horse at a seep and studies the horizon. A thin dust line moves miles out. Riders, or wind. He decides not to wait for the answer. He crosses his own back trail twice. He brushes out sign with a juniper branch. He leaves the burn behind and aims for Red Ridge by a cut that only a man on this land would know. He rides with his jaw set and a promise in his mouth. If there is breath, he will find it. If there is none, he will carry the truth home and stand between 3 daughters and the dark that took their father. By the time Elias reaches the rise above Red Ridge, the sun is sharp and merciless. Sweat cuts lines through the ash on his face. He can see his cabin below, a square of shade in a valley of heat. No riders in sight, no smoke trails behind him. Still, his gut stays tight. Trouble always rides quieter than you expect. When he dismounts, Clara is already on the porch. She must have seen the dust trail long before he reached the yard. May stands in the doorway, hand on the rifle, eyes wide. Lydia sits on the steps, her bandaged legs stretched out, jaw set like flint. They don't speak until he ties off the reins. "Well?" Clara asks, voice thin as wire. Elias shakes his head once. "The ranch is gone," he says. "Burned clean." The words are blunt, no comfort in them. "I didn't find him. Not yet." Clara's breath breaks, just once, before she forces it steady. May covers her mouth, eyes flooding. Lydia slams her fist against the porch rail, the sound cracking the quiet. "They killed him," she spits. "They had to." Elias doesn't argue. He only kneels beside her and grips her wrist until her hand stops trembling. "You don't know that," he says softly. "Not yet. And even if they did, you don't win by dying mad. You win by standing." May wipes her face. Clara looks at him, hollow and searching. "What do we do now?" Elias looks toward the canyon trail, where the wind moves the grass in small, secret patterns. "Now," he says, "we make ready. Whoever burned that house will come looking for what they didn't find." He rises slow, the stiffness in his shoulders showing the years. "Your father gave me his word once," he adds quietly, "that if I lived, I'd protect what he loved most." His eyes move from one face to the next. "I reckon I'm still living." The wind shifts, carrying the smell of smoke and iron. The girls don't answer, but the silence between them feels different now, heavier, steadier. Somewhere out there, the fire that took their home still smolders, but here, on the porch at Red Ridge, something else begins to burn. The next morning breaks clean and bright, but the air carries a strange stillness, the kind that makes animals hide early. Elias moves before the light hits full, checking the rifle, laying new boards across the windows, and scattering the horses to higher ground. The girls wake to the sound of hammer strikes, measured, patient, the rhythm of a man who has done this kind of waiting before. Clara steps out first, hair tied back, limp in her step, but resolve in her eyes. "You don't think they'll find us this fast?" she says, though it's not really a question. "They burned a ranch and left no witnesses," Elias answers. "Men like that don't quit before the trail goes cold." He finishes the nail line and wipes his hands on a rag. "We'll make them think Red Ridge is empty. A place no one bothers." Inside, May is boiling water again, the sharp smell of lye cutting through the morning air. Lydia sits at the table, cleaning the revolver Elias gave her, his spare, old but true. "You sure I can handle this?" she asks. Elias glances over. "It's lighter than the Army Colt. Kicks less, too. Just don't shoot what you're not ready to bury." Lydia smirks, but her eyes flicker, uncertain. She spins the cylinder once and clicks it shut. Breakfast is quiet. Dry beans, bread, and the kind of silence that feels like listening. Clara keeps glancing at the window. May hums something soft, a church tune half remembered from their mother's voice. Elias eats standing up, eyes on the ridgeline. He's counting minutes, measuring distance in the way wind bends the grass. When he finally speaks, it's not to the girls, but to the empty air. "There's a well a mile south," he says. "Old mine runoff feeds it. If you need to wash or fetch water, go together. Never alone. I'll ride out tonight, see what's moving past Wickenburg." Clara stiffens. "You shouldn't go." "Not yet." He looks at her, calm but unreadable. "If we don't know who's riding this country, we're already trapped." The wind shifts, dry and hot, carrying the faintest smell of smoke again. Clara swallows and nods. She doesn't argue anymore. Out here, survival isn't a matter of wanting, it's a matter of doing. And every sound, every step, feels like it could be the start of something they can't take back. They go at noon when heat rubs Prince flat. Clara and May walk together with a yoke and 2 empty buckets. Lydia stays back with Elias to watch the ridge. The path south threads mesquite and low rock. Grasshoppers knock against their skirts. The well sits in a shallow dip, old stone ring, a wind-warped post, a rope that sings when the wind catches it. Clara checks the ground first. 2 horses, she says. Yesterday, maybe dawn. May keeps her voice small. Could be ranch hands. Clara doesn't answer. She ties her hair tighter and lowers the pail. The rope creaks, the bucket kisses water. Cool and clean. She breathes like she's been underwater for days. They've filled 1 bucket when a hoof clicks on stone. A rider edges into the dip from the west, thin as a fence post, duster pale with road. He raises an open hand before they can move. "Water for my horse, that's all," he says. His hat is sweat-stained. His eyes keep drifting to the buckets, then to Clara's wrapped ankle. May's fingers slide toward the knife at her belt and stop. "Road's busy for nothing but water," Clara says. "Wickenburg's nervous," the man answers. "Word says a ranch burned last night. 3 girls run. Some folks looking for 'em." He tips his head, a slow, measuring motion. "No need to spook. I haul freight for Denton's depot. Name's Tobin." Clara lets the second bucket settle. May feels the ground with her heel, mapping the space between the stranger and the path home. "What else did you hear?" she asks. "That Jonas Pike's paying in coin and whiskey for any whisper," Tobin says. "Men who never cared about a well in their lives now stop for a drink and a listen." He looks toward the north ridge. Saw smoke that way. Clara keeps her face still. "You need a drink. Have it," she says. "Then ride on." Tobin swings down slow, hands wide. He pours water into his hat, lets the bay stallion lip at it. Up close, he smells like dust and axle grease, not whiskey or gun oil. He glances at the bandage peeking under May's hem and pretends not to see it. "If I were you," he says to the air, "I'd keep to shade and keep quiet till this blows past. But Jonas don't let wind die easy." A twig snaps behind him. "Step away from the girls," Elias says, voice even. He's been there the whole time, in the cottonwoods, rifle easy in his arms. Lydia stands a pace to his left, both hands steady on the spare revolver. Tobin turns slow, palms out. "Name's still Tobin," he says. "If you're Elias McCord, you've got a clean rep with Marshal Denton. I haul for him. I'm not here to sell a soul." Elias studies him long enough to make the truth sweat. Then he lowers the rifle a notch. "Drink. Then go. If anyone asks, the well's dry." Tobin nods, throws the last hatful to his horse, and swings up. "Dry as a sermon," he says. He hesitates, then adds, "Tell Denton you might need a friend." A touch of heel, and he moves off west, a pale smear against heat shimmer. They wait until the sound dies. Lydia exhales. May's knees soften. Clara lifts the buckets, jaw set. "Lesson," Elias says quietly. "Wells draw more than water. Next time we move at dawn." They start back through the glare, 4 shadows long on the white path, the echo of a name, Jonas Pike, riding the wind ahead of them. By nightfall, the wind carries grit like needles. Elias shuts the shutters tight and stacks the last plank across the door. The cabin smells of smoke, iron, and boiled herbs. Clara sits by the table, grinding yarrow leaves in a tin bowl. May threads new bandages. Lydia watches the window, every shift of wind making her fingers twitch toward the pistol. "They know," Clara says quietly. "If that freight man was telling the truth, Jonas has riders sweeping this way." Elias nods. "That's why we stay inside till dawn." He takes the chair by the hearth, his rifle across his lap. The fire throws a low orange wash on his face, deepening every line. "Walls are worth nothing unless you hold them. So we hold them." For a while, no one speaks. May hums again, soft, the same half-prayer from before. The tune catches in the wood grain, almost too gentle for a place that's seen blood. Lydia shifts in her chair. "You really think that man, Tobin, was honest?" "Didn't smell like a liar," Elias says. "And he spoke Denton's name. That matters." "Marshal Denton?" Clara asks. Elias nods. "Federal man in Prescott. He's fought Jonas in court more times than I can count. If Tobin works freight for him, that's one good thing left in this country." He leans forward, elbows on knees. "But you don't rest on luck. Tomorrow we move supplies into the cellar. If trouble comes, you head there and bar the hatch. You don't shoot unless they're through the door." Clara looks at him then, really looks, the gray at his temples, the scar that crawls up his right forearm like rope burn. "You've done this before," she says. Elias meets her gaze. "Too many times." May glances between them. "You fought in the war, didn't you?" He nods once, not proud, not sorry. "Union cavalry. Lost half my men, lost the rest in my head afterward." He pokes the fire with an iron rod. "I came here to forget how to point a gun at something living. But the land doesn't forget easy." The girls fall silent again. Lydia fidgets, restless, her leg aching under the bandage. "So what now?" she mutters. "We just hide forever?" Elias doesn't answer right away. The fire pops once, and a bit of resin hisses in the flame. Finally, he says, "Hiding's just breathing between storms. What we do next decides whether we die or live through the next one." He looks at Clara, at the steady way she grips the pestle. "Your father once said you had his stubborn streak." Clara gives a faint smile. "He said that a lot, usually when he was losing an argument." Elias lets out a slow breath. "Then he raised you right." Outside, coyotes start their long, lonely call, and for a heartbeat, the house feels smaller, but somehow safer, its thin walls holding 4 people, 4 shadows, and the quiet beginning of trust. The night deepens slow, The wind shifts north, brushing the shutters like a whisper trying to get in. Elias keeps his chair by the fire, half dozing but never far from the rifle across his knees. Every so often, the log snaps, and he opens one eye, scanning the dark corners of the room out of habit more than fear. On the cot by the wall, Lydia stirs and sits up. "Can't sleep," she mutters. "Every time I close my eyes, I hear horses." "They're not here," Elias says, low. "If they were, the dogs would tell us." "You don't have dogs," she shoots back. He tilts his head. "Then I'd hear it in the ground." Lydia frowns, then gives the smallest nod. She looks around the dim room, the patched table, the plain walls, the iron pot still steaming over the fire. "You really live out here alone?" "Been 5 years now," Elias says. "World's quieter when it doesn't expect anything from you." Lydia studies him. "You sound like Pa when he got tired of church folk asking when he'd come back." Elias almost smiles. "Your father was better at forgiving than I ever learned to be." He leans forward, rubbing the edge of his scar absent-mindedly. "He wrote me once after the war. Said he'd found gold in Dust Creek, but didn't care much for what it might cost. I thought he was talking about greed." Clara stirs on the floor mat, half awake. "He meant us," she says softly. "He called us his gold." The silence that follows feels like something sacred. May sits up, hair loose around her face, voice shaking. "If he's gone, if we never see him again," Elias interrupts, steady and firm. "You will see him again. Maybe not in the way you think, but you will." The girls exchange a look, each clinging to that thin thread of belief because it's all they have. Outside, an owl calls once, and somewhere far down the canyon, something answers, metal on stone, the faint echo of hooves. Elias's head snaps up. He raises a hand, motioning for quiet. The girls freeze. He moves to the window, peering through the crack in the shutter. Nothing but darkness and the low shimmer of moonlight on sage. Yet the feeling crawls down his spine all the same. He turns back, voice low and calm. "Pack what you can carry, just in case." Clara stands first. "You think they found us?" "I think they're close enough to smell smoke," he says. No one argues. They start to move quietly, rolling blankets, dousing the fire till only embers breathe. Outside, the night holds its breath. The world waits. And somewhere out there in the dark, Dust Creek listens, readying itself for another reckoning. They leave before dawn. No words, only movement, the shuffle of boots, the soft clink of buckles, the muted breath of horses being led out from the shed. Elias keeps his voice low, giving each order once, trusting them to follow. "Stay close. No talking till we're past the ridge." The trail winds narrow through red rock and dry juniper. The air tastes of stone dust and yesterday's smoke. Behind them, Red Ridge fades in the morning haze. The girls ride single file, Clara up front, her ankle bound tight, May steady in the middle, Lydia last, scanning the brush with her father's old revolver clutched in both hands. They cross a shallow wash where wagon tracks cut through the mud. Elias dismounts, crouches, and presses his fingers into one of the prints. Fresh. Too fresh. He studies the heel shape, the way the weight drags. "Jonas's men," he says. 3 of them, maybe 4. They passed last night. Clara leans forward in the saddle. "Heading west?" "Southwest," Elias replies. "Toward the creek." They're sweeping in a circle, looking for sign. He stands, brushing dirt from his palms. "We keep east till noon. They'll think we ran the other way." They move again, slow but sure. Sunlight breaks through a crack in the clouds, flashing against Lydia's bandage. She tugs her skirt down and glances at Elias, If they catch us, they won't, he says. Not if we don't give them a reason to look close. By midday, they find shade beneath a sandstone ledge. Elias calls a halt. The horses drink from a shallow pool. The girls share jerky and hard bread, the silence between them not uncomfortable, just heavy with what they're not saying. After a while, Clara pulls something from inside her coat, a small packet wrapped in oilskin, edges worn from the road. She sets it between them. "This is what he gave me that night," she says. "Said if anything happened, I should find you." Elias studies the packet without touching it. "You didn't open it?" Clara shakes her head. "Didn't dare. It felt wrong, like breaking his word." Elias nods once. "You were right." He unwraps it carefully, the oilskin crackling like old bark. Inside, folded parchment, a corner blackened with soot, a rough sketch of hills and creek beds, and a series of marks drawn in red pencil. Half a map. May leans close. "It's Dust Creek," she whispers. "Those bends, that's our pasture." Elias traces a finger along the faded ink, stopping at a jagged ridge marked with a cross. "That's the north end of the canyon," he murmurs. "The rest's missing." He flips the parchment over. On the back, faint handwriting still visible. "If I don't make it back, trust him." The girls exchange a glance. Lydia bites her lip. "Trust who?" Elias looks at them all, the wind lifting his hair, the map trembling in his hand. "Me," he says quietly. "He meant me." And for the first time since they arrived, his voice carries the weight of something older than promise, something closer to guilt. The wind picks up, tugging at the edges of the parchment like it's trying to steal the truth from their hands. Elias folds the map and slides it back into the oilskin, eyes fixed on the canyon line. The muscles in his jaw tighten. He knew they'd come for it, he says, half to himself. He knew Jonas would never stop. Clara stares at him. "You knew my father before the war?" Elias nods. "Long before. We ran cattle together out near Skull Valley. He was the kind who gave more than he had, and people like Jonas feed on that." He glances down at his scarred arm, the long, pale ridge twisting across his skin. "Your father patched this up once. Same day he said some debts can't be paid back in coin." May leans forward. "You think he found a mine?" "Maybe. Or maybe he found something men like Jonas think is worth killing for." Elias's voice drops. "Sometimes the gold ain't the danger. It's what men turn into chasing it." Lydia scowls. "And now he's dead because of it." Elias doesn't flinch. "Maybe, or maybe not yet. I saw no body, no grave." Clara draws a slow breath. "If there's even a chance." He finishes her thought. "Then we look." They ride again when the light softens. Dust lifts off the trail behind them, trailing like smoke. Elias keeps his rifle across his saddle, scanning each rise before crossing, the maps half hidden in his coat, pressing against his chest like a heartbeat he can't ignore. By late afternoon, they reach the edge of the dry mesa. The wind smells of sage and iron. Down below, Dust Creek curls through the land like a scar, narrow, stubborn, and alive. Elias reins in, eyes on the horizon. "That cross mark sits near the canyon mouth," he says. "We'll need to find the rest of this map before Jonas does." Clara follows his gaze. "You think he's close?" Elias doesn't answer right away. He watches the dust far off to the south shift and settle again, a faint plume where no wind moves. "Close enough," he says finally. "And if he's smart, he already knows where to start looking." May's voice trembles. "What if we can't find the other half?" Elias looks at her, then at the setting sun bleeding into the ridge. "Then we don't need a map," he says quietly. "We just need to stay alive long enough to make sure he never finds it." The light dies slow, leaving the canyon in shades of copper and ash. They make camp in silence. The fire burns low, more for comfort than warmth. Clara studies the oilskin lying between them, while Elias sits apart, sharpening his knife against a whetstone, each stroke a quiet vow. He's seen what greed does to men, But tonight, for the first time in years, he feels something else stirring beneath the scar. A reason to fight that isn't revenge, but redemption. Morning breaks thin and cold, the kind that stings the lungs. Elias moves first, already rolling his blanket before the others stir. "We start before the sun hits the ridge," he says. "Trail lessons begin now." Clara blinks sleep from her eyes, still wrapped in her coat. "Trail lessons?" "You can't outrun what's hunting you if you don't know the ground," Elias says. He kicks dust over the campfire until smoke curls low and gray. "You'll learn to ride smart, read wind, and find water where there ain't any." May groans softly, rubbing her sore arm. "We're not soldiers, Mr. McCord." "No," Elias says, tightening his saddle cinch, "but soldiers live because they listen." By the time the first light hits the rocks, they're mounted and moving through the canyon cut. Elias leads at a slow trot, pointing as they go. "See that? Wind-leaned grass. Means a pass close by." He stops at a patch of cracked clay. "That?" Lydia peers down. "Coyote tracks?" He grunts approval. "Good. But look closer. There." He points at a scuff where the tracks double back. "Something spooked it. See the spread in the toes? That's panic. Could be a cat or a man. You read the land, it reads back." They ride on, following the faint line of Dust Creek. A hawk circles high, its cry splitting the morning. Clara studies the terrain like she's trying to memorize every stone. May stays close to her, humming under her breath to keep steady. Lydia, restless as ever, edges ahead until Elias raises a hand and makes her stop. "Front rider dies first," he says flatly. "Don't outrun your cover." Lydia grits her teeth but falls back. "You sound like Pa." Elias doesn't smile. "Then he taught you well." By midday, heat rolls down the canyon walls. They stop under an overhang where the creek still runs shallow. Elias shows them how to draw water without stirring silt, how to leave no prints when they move. He cuts branches to hide the horses and shows Clara how to bind a splint tighter. "You'll hate the quiet before you learn to use it," he says. "But out here, quiet keeps you breathing." May wipes sweat from her brow. "Were you always like this? So sure?" Elias pauses, looking out over the desert, the wind tugging at his hat brim. "No," he says softly. "Once, I believed noise meant I was still alive." Clara studies him, trying to read the spaces in his silence. She can see it now, the weight behind his calm, the years of running from ghosts that never stopped following. When they set off again, the world feels wider, the air sharper, and though the danger still hangs heavy, the girls ride closer to him now, not behind for protection, but beside him, learning what it means to stand their ground. They practice at dusk when wind drops and sound carries clean. Elias sets 3 tin cups on a dead log and walks back 20 paces. "Breathe out on the squeeze," he says. "Do not fight the gun. Let it do the work." Lydia goes first, stubborn chin up, both hands on the grip. The first shot kicks high, ringing the canyon wall. The second takes the cup's rim and flips it into the dust. She grins before she can stop it. "Again," Elias says. "Hits do not matter unless you can repeat them." She breathes, shoots, breathes, shoots, each report smaller than the space it fills. Clara steps up next. She braces wrong and corrects on her own. The shot lands wide. She adjusts her stance. The next one does not miss. Her ankle wobbles, but the set of her shoulders does not. Elias nods once, the kind of nod that carries weight. May watches, fingers tight on the small revolver. "I am better with a pen," she says. "Then write your breath slow," Elias answers. "Line your words and your sights." May laughs, quick and light in the dim. Her first shot startles her. The second finds tin. She lowers the gun and keeps smiling like she forgot how for a while and just remembered. They end when the last light bleeds out. Elias walks the targets, counting holes with the same quiet he used to count men at roll call. "You shoot to stop a man from hurting you," he says, "not to prove anything. If you can run, run. If you can hide, hide. If you must fight, end it fast." A rustle in the brush kills the calm. Elias lifts a hand, the girls freeze. The sound comes again, low and deliberate. Not wind, not rabbit. He ghosts forward, rifle tucked, eyes soft so they can catch movement in the edge of sight. A shape slides between Ocotillo and rock, too heavy for a fox, too careful for a cow. Back, he whispers. The shape pauses, then fades away downslope, the ground giving a faint clink like tack against stirrup iron. Riders. At least one, maybe two. Patient men who learn to make a horse step like a shadow. They hold still until night takes the last color from the stones. Elias speaks only when he is sure the ridge is empty. They are feeling for us, he says. Not pressing yet. That means they do not know where we sleep. Clara swallows. For how long? Long enough, he says, if we stay smaller than their questions. They douse the coals with sand and pack camp in the dark. Elias shows them how to walk heel to toe so the ground does not remember them. He ties a strip of torn shirt to a mesquite branch and drags it over their prints. The desert erases them without a trace. Under the first stars, he hands each girl a small tin of fat and ash for blacking, a strip of cloth, a piece of hard candy to keep a dry mouth quiet. You know more than you did this morning, he says. That is how we live through the next one. The wind answers with a dry whisper, and somewhere far off a single hoof clicks like a clock finding the hour. By morning, the wind has shifted again, steady from the south, carrying heat and the faint tang of mesquite smoke. Elias moves ahead on foot, checking the line of the wash where the soil still holds the memory of night. He crouches, fingers brushing the earth. 3 riders, he says quietly. Same horses as before. They're circling wider now. Clara dismounts beside him, scanning the ground. How close? He glances toward the ridge. A mile, maybe less. They're not pushing hard, just letting the dust tell them our story. May's breath catches. So they know we're out here? They suspect, Elias says. That's different. Suspicion keeps a man slow. Fear makes him stupid. We stay somewhere in between. He straightens, dusting his palms. We'll break trail at the fork, then follow the creek north. Water masks, scent, and track. Lydia's jaw tightens. And if they still find us? Then they'll wish they hadn't, Elias says flatly. They move quick but quiet, the horses picking their way along the rock beds. Every few minutes, Elias stops to scan the ridgelines, gauging angles, light, and silence. The desert seems too still, the kind of stillness that listens back. By midday, the heat becomes a living thing. Sweat burns through bandages, lips crack, and the air wavers above the sand like liquid glass. May starts humming again, low, rhythmic, the same broken hymn she's carried since the first night. Lydia snaps, "Can you stop that? It's making me crazy." May flinches. Clara cuts her a look. "She's scared same as you," she says. Lydia grips the reins tighter. Scared doesn't help. Shooting does. Elias reins in and turns back, his expression calm but sharp enough to cut. Enough. The word lands heavy. Fear's no sin, but you don't feed it with noise. You choke it down and keep moving. Lydia looks away, her lip trembling, but she nods. Clara mouths a quiet thank you to Elias. He gives a single nod back. They ride until shadows stretch long. The land opens into a basin where the creek thins to a ribbon of silver. Elias raises a hand, signaling halt. We'll rest here. No fire. As they unsaddle, Clara kneels by the water, washing the grit from her hands. Something pale catches her eye, a torn scrap of linen snagged on a root. It's stiff with dried blood. Her throat tightens. "Pa," she whispers. Elias comes beside her, lifting the cloth with care. "Maybe," he says. Or maybe someone who stood in his place. Clara closes her eyes, the hope and dread twisting inside her until she can't tell them apart. Lydia steps closer, her voice low and shaking. "If he's alive, we'll find him. If not, Elias cuts her off softly. Then we make sure they answer for it. He tucks the scrap into his pocket, eyes on the horizon where heat turns to haze. Somewhere out there, the men who burned the Whitlock Ranch are still riding, and Elias McCord plans to make them remember what they've done. They bivouac in the thin shade of a leaning cottonwood. No fire, no talk. Elias walks the basin's rim in a slow circle and marks 3 stands where a rifle could speak without showing a face. When he returns, Clara is wrapping Lydia's leg tighter. May is rinsing the bandages and watching the sky as if it might answer a prayer. "Listen," Elias says. "We leave sign that tells a lie. Saddles light. Bed rolls up high in that juniper. We drag false prints south, then wade the creek north. If they bite on the lie, we buy 2 hours. Lydia wants a fight. It shows in her mouth and the way her fingers flirt with the pistol. Why not hit them here?" she whispers. "End it. Because a fight you choose is worth 3 you take," Elias says. "And we have 3 to take already." They move. Clara drags the brush bundle in a wide arc, stamping extra hoof marks where the sand is softest. May walks behind, sweeping edges clean. Elias doubles back through the water and cuts a new path in the stones. When they regroup at the north bend, the sun is dropping, and the basin has the quiet of a held breath. Hoof beats. Not many. 2, maybe 3. Close, then gone, then close again, where the basin lip folds the sound and throws it back wrong. Elias pulls them into the tamarisk and sets the rifle on a limb. He speaks without turning. "No one fires unless I speak it." The riders ghost the false trail and slow at the juniper where the bedrolls sit high and neat. One man points. Another laughs, short and mean, like a dog that does not share. They split. One heads south to nose the sand. 2 push west, hunting the edge where water meets stone. Clara feels Lydia tense. She sets her hand on her sister's wrist. May breathes in and out, small and steady, counting for all of them. A horse snorts. The South rider curses. He has found the lie and does not like being fooled. He kicks up dust and cuts back toward the creek. Elias watches the angle change. He judges the distance. He lowers his cheek to the stock. A hawk screams somewhere overhead. The rider looks up. For 1 clean second he shows his throat and the white of his eye. Elias does not shoot. He whispers, "Not yet." The men circle. They do not cross. They sniff at the water and argue in low voices. Then they back away and climb out of the basin the way they came. The sound fades. The dust falls. The hawk drifts on a lazy wind as if none of it mattered. Lydia lets out the breath she forgot she was holding. "Why did you let them go?" she says. "Because now they believe the South is our fear," Elias answers. "Tomorrow they will press there. We will not be there." He stands and shoulders the rifle. Break the brush. Wipe the prints. We walk the creek till the stars show. Then we sleep on stone. Stones keep no stories. They walk the creek until the stars burn hard and close. The night smells of wet stone and creosote. Elias keeps them tight and quiet, his boots finding rock, not sand. When the water narrows to a throat of black pools, he stops and points to a shelf of basalt. "Sleep there," he whispers. No prints. No fire. Clara helps May climb up. Lydia lingers at the edge, restless as always. "I'll check the bend," she says. Elias shakes his head once. She answers with a glare he knows too well from younger, braver days. 2 minutes, he says. No more. She slips along the bank, low and fast, the moon turning her bandage into a pale flag. Elias watches her go and feels the old pull in his ribs. Pride. Fear. The weight of both is a familiar pain. He turns to stow the rifle and hears it then. A coyote. One sharp bark. Too clean. Too close. Down, he breathes. Clara pulls May flat on the stone. Elias slides into the tamarisk and brings the rifle to his shoulder. Two shapes lift from the dark along the bend. Not coyotes. Men with patience and a plan. One ghosts behind Lydia. The other moves to cut her off. She does not see them until she hears the pebble click under a boot. She turns and the world goes narrow and fast. Easy, the nearer man says. His voice is sandy. Tired. A hand reaches for her arm. Lydia steps back. Her heel hits water. The revolver is up, but her hands shake. The man smiles like he is kind. You don't want that, he says. A small stone hums past his ear and smacks the rock behind him. He flinches. Elias is already moving. Soft feet on softer ground. His rifle never wavers. You touch her and you die, he says. The second man freezes. He has a shotgun low at his hip. He weighs the angle. He measures the voice. He looks for the shooter and finds only moonlight and brush. Guns down, Elias says. Butts in the sand. The first man takes a breath like he might try something foolish. A coyote barks again. This time from the ridge behind them. A third shadow shifts up there. Elias clocks it. 3 against 1. No shot he likes. He keeps the sight steady and lets his voice do the work. You fire, he says, and the only thing you hit is the dark. I have the light. The men trade a quick look. Desert men. They know what a bad trade feels like. The shotgun lowers first. The other follows. Butts in the sand. Hands open. Walk, Elias says. Upstream. Slow. Keep to the left bank. If you look back, you bleed. They go. Lydia holds steady until he is beside her. Then the gun trembles, and she lets out the breath she had been hoarding like coin. I had it, she says, defiant and small at once. You almost did, Elias answers. He checks the bend, checks the ridge, waits for the third shadow to peel away. It does. He turns her toward the shelf. Almost is where graves grow. Back on the stone, Clara grips Lydia's shoulders hard enough to hurt. May covers her mouth with both hands and sobs into her palms, quiet and shaking. Elias kneels and wipes the river water from Lydia's skirt. His hands are gentle. His face is not. That coyote was a whistle, he says. Men use any mouth the desert gives them. Hear it again, and you freeze until I tell you different. Sevens. Lydia nods, eyes dark and bright. I'm sorry, she says. Be sorry later, Elias says. Be alive now. They do not sleep. Not really. The shelf holds their backs like cold iron. Elias sets watches, 1 hour each, no light, no talk above a whisper. He walks the bend twice and lifts a line of stones onto the path, ankle height, quiet traps that speak loud when kicked. He drags brush over their earlier prints and smudges the edge of the water with a wet branch. When he returns, the girls sit close, a small island of breath in the dark. May takes first watch. Her hymn is gone now. Only counting. In. Out. The creek answers with a little glass sounds. Clara studies the half map by starlight, memorizing the bends as if they were lines on her palm. Lydia stares at the place where the men were, jaw hard, eyes wet and furious. Elias crouches beside her. You did not freeze, he says. That matters. I wanted to shoot, she answers. I wanted him to fall and never get up. He holds her gaze. Wanting and doing are different roads. One you walk, one walks you. He touches the bandage at her thigh, checks for heat, for bleed. You pick the road that keeps you breathing. She swallows. Pa would have told me to run. He told you to live. Elias settles with his back to the rock, voice low and even. I had a daughter. She ran too slow once. I have not stopped running in my head since. A pause. A breath that sticks. Do not learn that lesson the way I did. Lydia blinks hard. I won't. Good. He looks up at the ridge, where the third shadow was. Those men are not scouts. They are feelers. Jonas pushes them like fingers into the creek, looking for a pulse. We give him none. Clara slides the map back into the oilskin. What next? She asks. North at first light, Elias says. Stone beds. No tracks. We curve east near the canyon mouth. If we're lucky, they eat our lie till noon. He nods toward the upstream dark. After that, we find a high place. I need to see who's riding Wickenburg Road. May finally speaks. And if luck runs out, then we make our own, he says. The hour turns. May passes the rifle to Clara. Lydia curls on her side, eyes open. The desert leans in. Somewhere far out, a pebble ticks, then nothing. The traps stay quiet. The wind tastes like iron. Just before dawn, a true coyote sings. Not a whistle. A long, thin thread of sound that lifts the hair on their arms. Elias listens to the tail of it, feels the ground with his palm, and decides. Up, he whispers. Move. They slide from the shelf and into the gray. Packs tight. Footfalls careful. The creek goes cold as a knife around their ankles. A pale wash spills across the east and pulls shape from the land. On the far bank, a single figure stands where the cottonwoods start, hat in hand, empty palms raised to the light. Clara reaches for the rifle. Elias stops her with one finger. The man steps forward once, slow, like he is coming back to somewhere he once knew. His coat is torn. His eyes are the color of a long night without sleep. Don't shoot, he calls softly. It's me. Lydia's breath hitches. May's hand finds Clara's sleeve. Elias does not lower the barrel yet, but his voice changes, a roughness turning to something like recognition. Royce, he says. You picked a fine morning to grow a spine. Royce Vanner steps into the gray like a ghost who forgot the road home. Coat torn, lip split, one sleeve dark with dried blood. He keeps his hands high. Don't shoot, he says again, softer now. I'm done running the wrong way. Elias holds him in the sights 2 beats longer, then lets the barrel drift, but not drop. If Jonas sent you, Elias says, turn around and tell him the creek's empty. Royce shakes his head. Jonas sent me to hell. I walked back. His eyes find the girls and don't know where to land. Clara, May, Lydia. Lydia's mouth hardens. You sold us, she says. You sold Pa. Royce flinches. I sold myself first, he answers, voice cracked. I never meant it to touch you. Clara lifts the rifle slow, steady. Meaning doesn't matter, she says. Only what you did. Elias edges forward, keeping them all in his view. Talk, he says to Royce. All of it. Royce swallows. Jonas came on me at the Verdi tables. Debt stacked to the rafters. Said I could work it off by listening, where your pa rode, when he hauled, who came to the fence at night. He promised to clear the slate and cut me in if the strike was real. He looks at his boots. I was a fool. He was a liar. May's voice is small. How do we know you're not lying now? Royce reaches into his coat with 2 fingers and pulls out a crumpled handbill, edges greasy. He tosses it to the gravel where Elias can see. Wanted, 3 Whitlock daughters. Reward in coin for information. Below it, in smaller hand, a list of brands friendly to Jonas, and a note. Marshal Denton interfering. Watch the road to Prescott. Elias reads fast, jaw set. Who else rides? 6 I know by name, Royce says. More drifting in. Jonas talks like he already owns half the county. He paid Deputy Sutter in Wickenburg to look the other way. Says he'll smoke out the man at Red Ridge if he has to burn every cottonwood to do it. His voice breaks again. He means you. Lydia spits into the sand. Good. Let him try. Clara doesn't look away from Royce. Why come now? Royce licks blood from his lip. Because last night I heard something I couldn't carry. Jonas said your father was spent and not to bother with questions anymore. I don't know if that means dead or broken, but it sounded like a door closing. He lifts his hands higher, like a man asking the sky for a smaller sin. Let me make it right. I know his roots. I know where Jonas beds his horses, where he keeps the ledgers he thinks no one's seen. Give me a chance to put a match to the right haystack. Silence folds around them. Water ticks on rock. A hawk writes a slow circle above the cottonwoods. Elias finally nods once, a hard, short thing. You walk ahead, he says. Hands where I can see them. You help us breathe, you live. You cross us, I dig a hole with your name on it. Royce exhales like a man who's been holding his breath for 3 years. Fair, he says. Clara lowers the rifle a finger's width. May nods, tear bright but set. Lydia keeps her glare, but the barrel dips. The creek takes them north, 4 shadows tight, 1 more added, and every step writes a new line none of them can erase. They follow the creek in single file, Royce ahead with hands high, Elias astride behind. The girls close. Heat climbs. Sage breathes. Royce talks in pieces. A dry corral at Red Mesa for fresh mounts, a freight shed stamped with a sideways C, a whiskey runner on the Wickenburg Road, a ledger under a false floor at Pike's Mill. Names. Body, who snores. Lark, who wakes to a fly. Elias files it away. Who guards him when he sleeps? Body and Lark, Royce says. Body drinks. Lark counts breaths. They stop in a sliver of shade. May pours a cap of water into Royce's palm. He drinks careful, like guilt has a throat. Lydia watches his hands for lies. Clara watches his eyes for the same. Say it plain, Clara asks. Is our father dead? I heard spent, not buried, Royce says. Jonas squeezes men till their words are useless. If he died, it was for keeping his mouth shut. May covers her lips. Lydia looks away hard. Clara's grip tightens on the canteen rim, nothing else moving. Elias cuts in before silence turns mean. We do 2 things. Live long enough to learn the truth. Make the truth hurt the right men. He points north. Red Ridge first. Stock the cellar. Then we shake them off the scent. Watchers on the high road, Royce warns. Ride broad, and they'll spot you. We won't, Elias says. They cut east through stone that keeps no memory. Elias shows Royce heel to toe, soft eyes, how to breathe with the land. Twice Royce stumbles, then learns. Pride bends into use. A lone coyote pads the ridge and drifts south. Royce shivers. Ghosts out here. Only if you brought them, Elias says. By late light, Red Ridge sits small against the slope, shutters closed, yard swept clean. Elias glasses the approach with a mirror shard. No horses, no churn, only a faint, lazy dust far off. They slip inside. The cellar smells of cool earth and iron. Flour, jerky, water, spare rounds go down the steps. A blanket for each girl. Elias shows the hatch bar and the low vent behind the woodpile. If I say down, you go, he tells them. If I don't say it and you hear a fight, you still go. Clara starts to argue. He lifts a hand. You go. That's how this works. Royce hovers at the stairs. You sure you want me here? I'm why they found your door. Then you'll be why they don't come through it, Elias says, handing him a shovel. Trench along the north wall. Bullets pass over. We don't. They work. Dirt lifted, boards braced, water hauled. Plans settle like stones. Outside, wind shifts. Somewhere between Red Mesa and Wickenburg, men who ride for Jonas Pike taste dust they didn't make and start to wonder who's feeding it to them. Wind comes hard from the south, hot and mean. Red Ridge holds its breath. Elias finishes the trench along the north wall and pats the lip flat. Royce stands watch at the window slot, hat brim low, eyes on the cottonwoods. Clara checks the cellar latch again. May lays out bandages and the small tin of lye. Lydia palms the spare revolver and moves like a shadow between door and hearth. Riders, Royce says. Quiet. Certain. Elias takes the rifle and looks through the slot. 3 shapes slide along the far fence, slow and careful. The kind of careful that says they have time, and you do not. He sets the barrel on the sill. Breathe, he tells the room. No one fires till I speak it. The first man edges to the gate and lifts the latch with a stick. Testing for wire. Testing for men who think too simple. He grins when nothing bites. The second man points to the door. The third hangs back with a scattergun across the saddle, eyes counting windows. Elias watches the angles and the sun. He puts his sights on the one at the gate. Now, he says. The shot is clean. The man drops, dust puffing in a soft ring. The second dives for the trough. The third spurs left and fires wild. Wood splinters from the shutter. May flinches. Lydia does not. She steps to the slot on the south wall and waits for a shape. When it shows, she squeezes. The scattergun jumps. The rider jerks and wobbles, then claws back to seat and staggers out of line. 2 left, Elias says. His voice is steady, low as the floor. The trough man pops up. Royce fires from the doorframe, fast and mean. The man yelps, but rolls clean and returns a shot that rips a plank near Royce's ear. Clara pulls him back by the collar. Stay small, she hisses. Hoofbeats pound from the cottonwoods. A 4th rider appears, late to the party, cutting the corner with his head low. He aims for the porch. Elias swings to meet him. The world narrows. He fires. The horse flinches. The rider slides. The porch post shatters. Something slaps Elias's upper arm, hot and sudden. He staggers back and drops to a knee. Pa! The word tears out of Lydia before she knows it. May is already there with the bandage roll. Clara catches Elias under the shoulder and drags him behind the table. Blood wets his sleeve in a quick red bloom. Through and through, Elias says between teeth. Hi. I'm upright. Not for long, Clara says, pressing hard. May, cloth. Lydia, cover the south. Royce leans back to the slot and clicks the hammer. Gateman's crawling. He won't crawl far. A voice shouts from the cottonwoods. McCord! Send the girls out, and we leave you breathin'. Another shot slaps the door. Elias breathes slow and lets the pain find its box. He nods to Clara, then to the trench. Positions, he says. We hold the walls. Outside, the wind lifts the dust and makes ghosts of the riders. Inside, the house tightens around 4 hearts and 1 vow. The next move belongs to Red Ridge. The house groans under the next volley. Bullets chew the shutters, spit wood into the air. Elias steadies his rifle on the table edge, every shot deliberate, breathing through the sting in his arm. Count the sound, he tells them. 2 rifles, 1 shotgun. When it's quiet, they're reloading. That's when we speak. Sevens. Lydia crouches at the trench slit. The moment the thunder stops, she pops up and fires twice. A shout answers, rough and angry. Got one! She yells. Elias doesn't look, but nods once. May stays low, hands trembling but steady as she ties the bandage tighter around his arm. You shouldn't be moving. If I stop, I'll stiffen, Elias mutters. He sights again, breath slow. Another flash outside, another rider slumping from the saddle. The echo rolls down the ridge like thunder. At the back door, Royce peeks through a crack. They're breaking off. 1 down, 1 running. Clara grabs his sleeve. The 1 running will circle for the horses. He'll bring more. Elias wipes sweat from his brow. Then we end it before he finds the trail. He looks at Lydia. You still trust that aim? She swallows hard. Yes, sir. Good. You're with me. Clara steps forward. She's not leaving this house. She's my shot, Elias says, eyes on the window. You want them alive behind her? Then, let her stand. Lydia grabs the second rifle before her sister can protest. I'm going. Elias pushes open the side door into the glare. The air outside burns dry, bright as glass. They move low along the wall, slipping through the smoke and dust. At the fence line, Lydia spots motion, a horse limping, the rider dragging 1 leg, heading for the creek. Elias steadies her shoulder. Lead the body, not the ghost. She exhales, squeezes, and the rifle speaks once. The rider folds. Silence drops heavy, broken only by the creek's faint whisper. When they return, Clara meets them at the door, tears bright but unshed. Is it done? For now, Elias says. He lowers the rifle and sinks to a chair. Blood blooms again through the bandage, but his eyes stay sharp. Royce steps in from the porch, holding a satchel pulled from the dead man's belt. He dumps it on the table, maps, a small brass compass, and a folded letter sealed with dark wax. Jonas Pike's mark. Elias opens it with his knife. Inside, a short message scrawled in a rough hand. Burn the ridge. Bring me the girls alive. The map dies with McCord. Clara's throat tightens. He knows. Elias meets her eyes, cold and steady. Then he's coming, and we'll be ready. Outside, the sun leans west. The ridge glows red as blood drying in sand, and the air feels like it's holding its breath for the next storm. The storm doesn't wait long. By late afternoon, the horizon bruises purple, and dust drags across the valley like smoke before the fire. Elias smells it first, the sharp, oily tang of kerosene carried on the wind. He looks up from the table, eyes narrowing. They're close. Royce peers through the slit window. 3 riders coming fast, maybe 4 behind. May, Elias says, voice flat but calm, get the map and oilskin. Clara, the food. Lydia, rifles and cartridges. Sevens. They move without a word. Every step is practiced now, swift, sure, silent. The girls stuff what they can into the burlap packs. May ties off the bundle with shaking fingers. Lydia slings the rifle strap across her chest. Outside, a shot cracks. Then another. Then, the sound that freezes blood. The dull thud of a lantern hitting dirt, glass shattering, oil catching. Fire blooms near the barn, rolling red and yellow against the twilight. Damn, Royce mutters. They're not taking prisoners. Elias checks the trench. They want the map. They think it's buried under us. He shoulders his rifle, wincing when the bandage pulls. Royce, you take the south flank. Hold till the barn goes. After that, we head for the canyon. Royce nods. And if they box the road? Then we cut through the dry creek. Fire runs uphill faster than men. Sevens. The flames grow teeth, climbing boards, snapping ropes. The horses scream in the corral before breaking loose into the smoke. Clara stands at the door, the light flickering over her face. That barn's going to torch the roof, she says. Elias glances back, calm in the chaos. Then we don't give it the chance. He kicks open the cellar hatch. Down, all of you. Stay low till I call. No, Clara says, eyes fierce. We stay and fight. You fight by living, he growls. Go. But Lydia is already at the window, firing a clean shot into the firelight. A figure drops. Another returns fire. Wood splinters near her shoulder. That's one less, she says. Elias curses under his breath. Damn stubborn blood. He reloads, hands quick despite the pain. Fine. We make them pay for every board they burn. Smoke rolls through the open door. The air tastes of ash and iron. Royce yells from outside. They're flanking the ridge. Elias moves to the threshold, eyes burning. Let them come, he says. Red Ridge doesn't fall easy. Behind him, the girls brace at the walls, shadows alive in the firelight. The sound of hooves thunders closer, and for a breath, the old ranch house feels like a beating heart made of wood, dust, and stubborn, living fire. The ridge erupts in noise and flame. Fire eats the barn first, then leaps the fence like it remembers hunger. The sky goes red, thick with ash and grit. Elias takes position at the doorway, firing in rhythm, each shot folding another shadow into the dust. Hold your line, he shouts. Royce answers from the south wall. They're breaking around the smoke, 2 on foot, 1 still mounted. Take the rider, Elias calls back. A single gunshot answers, sharp and final. Inside, May coughs through the smoke, covering her mouth with her sleeve. We can't stay, Pa. The roof's catching. Elias looks up. Rafters glow dull orange. You're right. Clara, get the packs. Lydia, grab the oilskin and my saddlebag. May, to the hatch. Lydia hesitates. You're coming too. I will. Go. They hesitate just long enough for the window to explode inward. A lantern hits the floor, scattering shards and flame. May screams as fire snakes across the boards. Clara yanks her back. Elias stomps at the sparks, then swipes the burning cloth with his jacket. The air turns molten. Move! He roars. They rush to the cellar hatch. Smoke curls down like black fingers. Royce bursts through the door, bleeding from a cut above his brow. We're boxed. 3 more coming from the east. Elias grabs his rifle and shoulders it. Then we clear a road. He and Royce push through the smoke, firing toward the shadows that flicker behind the burning corral. 2 fall. A 3rd bolts. Now! Elias shouts. Go! The girls spill out the back door into the night. Fire paints their faces gold and red. Lydia half drags May toward the creek. Clara looks back, Elias and Royce silhouetted in the doorway, fire crawling up the walls behind them. Elias! she screams. Run, girl! He bellows. Find the canyon. They run. The world blurs into smoke and sparks. Behind them, the cabin roof folds in with a scream of timber. The ridge glows like a dying sun. At the creek, they stop just long enough to breathe. The heat presses their backs. May sobs into Clara's shoulder. Lydia turns toward the blaze. We can't leave them. A figure bursts from the fire line, Royce, coughing, dragging Elias by the arm. Both are coated in soot, alive but spent. The girls rush forward. Clara and Lydia pull Elias clear, his sleeve charred, his voice rough. We're not done yet, he says. They'll follow the fire down. We head for the canyon. The 6 of them, 4 hearts and 2 half-broken, move into the dark wash of the creek. Behind them, Red Ridge burns to embers, sending sparks into a sky already full of stars. Elias looks back once, the reflection of the fire caught in his eyes. She did her part, he murmurs. Now we do ours. And as the flames consume the last of the home that once held them, the desert wind rises, carrying both smoke and promise toward the waiting canyon ahead. They follow the creek until the fire's roar turns to a far-off hum. Smoke lingers behind them like a living thing that refuses to die. The night is black but restless, wind changing directions, pushing heat one moment and cold the next. Elias moves slow, half limping, May steadying him with a hand on his back. Keep low, he says. They'll follow the light until it dies, then they'll hunt the tracks. Clara glances over her shoulder. The ridge glows faint on the horizon, a wound against the stars. Red Ridge is gone. Elias doesn't look back. Wood burns. The land stays. Royce trudges beside them, clothes scorched, breath ragged. I led those bastards straight to your door, he says. Now I'll be the one to stop them. You already started, Elias answers. You pulled me out of that barn. That's more than most men do. Lydia moves ahead, scanning the trail with sharp eyes. There's a split up ahead, she says. One narrow, one wide. The wide one's the easy way, Elias says, which means it's the wrong one. They take the narrow path into the canyon. The walls rise close, cold rock streaked with moonlight. Water trickles down one side, gathering in black pools that smell of iron. The sound hides their footsteps, but not their fear. May stumbles once. Clara catches her, whispering, just a little farther. Elias stops suddenly, raising a hand. Hear that? A faint rattle of loose stone echoes above them. Not wind. Not water. Something moving where it shouldn't. Riders? Royce whispers. Elias shakes his head. Too high. He scans the canyon rim. A dark shape flickers, vanishing behind a ridge. They're trying to box us from above. Lydia's grip tightens on her rifle. Then we climb first. Elias studies the wall, a steep slope of shale and brush, slick with dew. Not together, he says. One at a time. Quiet. You go first, Lydia. She doesn't argue. She slings the rifle, digs her boots into the rock, and starts the climb. Pebbles slide, the sound swallowed by the canyon's hollow breath. May helps Clara lift the packs to Elias. We shouldn't stop, she says. We don't stop, Elias replies. We hold. A shout echoes down from the rim, a man's voice, harsh, cut off mid-word by a gunshot that cracks the stillness apart. Lydia freezes halfway up, head snapping toward the sound. Elias raises his rifle but sees nothing but dark rock and the faint echo of boots running out of sight. Keep going, he calls. We're not alone up there. Lydia hauls herself over the edge and disappears from view. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then her voice, hoarse, urgent. It's clear. Come on. Elias starts the climb next, pain biting deep in his arm, but his eyes stay sharp. Move, he tells the others. Before the canyon decides who owns it. They climb into the pale dawn, smoke curling far below, the wind carrying the ghost of the ridge behind them. The desert feels wide again, cruel and clean, and every step up the shale feels like a promise to keep breathing, no matter what waits at the top. The climb tears skin and breath alike. Shale shifts under every boot, sliding into the dark below. Elias reaches the top last, Royce pulling him the final step with a grunt. They collapse in the thin grass, lungs heaving, dawn bleeding pale across the canyon rim. Below them, smoke from Red Ridge curls like a dying ghost. Lydia kneels near the edge, rifle ready. They'll follow, she says. Not till daylight, Elias answers. They'll think we're ash with the house. He wipes blood from his knuckles. That buys us hours, not mercy. May curls beside Clara, shivering. Where do we go now? North, Elias says. Follow the ridge toward the dry wash. There's a hollow where we can rest. Royce frowns. That wash runs close to Jonas's freight line. If he's moving men east, then we stay unseen. Elias cuts him off. You wanted to make this right. Now you keep us invisible. They move again, the world painted gray and silver. The canyon widens, walls falling away to rolling hills. Heat builds quick. Every mile costs more blood, more will. Elias hides the limp, but Clara sees it, how each step leaves a darker print. You're bleeding again, she says. He glances down at the soaked bandage. I've done worse on a saddle, he mutters. You're not on a saddle now, she says. You're half falling on your feet. Elias gives her a look halfway between thanks and warning. Don't spend your worry on me. Save it for what's chasing us. By midday, the sun nails them flat. They stop under a rock shelf. May shares the last of the canteen. Lydia stares west, her jaw tight. I should have killed the one who ran, she says. He's telling Jonas everything. Elias shakes his head. You killed one fire to start another. The world doesn't need more. She glares. You sound like Pa. He looks away. Maybe that's why he sent you to me. For a long time, no one speaks. The wind hums through the stone like a low voice remembering a song. Then Royce points at the horizon. Smoke again, thin column, near the wash. Elias stands. The ache in his leg flares, but he ignores it. Scouting fire, he says. They're checking the line for us. If they find it empty, they'll push north. We'll move west by night, use the cliffs for cover. Clara nods. And if they don't? Then we show them they missed, he says quietly. They start walking again as the sun dips. The ridge behind them fades to black, but the glow of what was Red Ridge still haunts the clouds. Elias glances back once, hat low, eyes hard. It's gone, Lydia says beside him. He nods. Then we build something that burns brighter. The desert swallows their tracks. Ahead lies the open wash, the promise of escape, or the beginning of the next fight. Night lays quiet on the desert. The stars hang close, bright enough to count by. The group follows the dry wash west, boots whispering over sand and stone. The moon spills enough light to move without lamps. Elias keeps them close to the canyon wall, his rifle slung, his eyes never still. Every sound could be a breath or a trap. After an hour, Royce slows, squinting at the dark ahead. There, he says, pointing. That hollow. Your father used to camp there when he ran ore samples. Said the air stayed cool even in summer. Clara glances at Elias. He nods once. We rest. No fire. They reach the hollow, a shallow cave tucked under a jut of red rock, half hidden by mesquite. Inside, the air smells of dust and dry sage. May collapses first, too tired to speak. Lydia stands at the entrance, scanning the open wash below. Feels wrong, she mutters. It's the quiet, Elias says. After noise like we had, silence feels like waiting. He kneels, rolling his bad shoulder. Pain flares down his arm, but he hides it under a steady breath. We'll keep watch in turns. Royce first. Royce nods, still looking out toward the distant shimmer of the valley. Clara moves to help Elias with his bandage. Let me, she says softly. He doesn't argue this time. She unwinds the stained cloth, revealing the raw groove where the bullet passed clean through. The wound looks angry, rimmed with dust. You should have told me it opened again, she says. I needed the climb more than the blood, he answers. She meets his eyes, firm but kind. You keep saying that like it's a trade worth making. Sometimes it is, he murmurs. Depends who's following. She doesn't look away. And who's worth bleeding for? Elias opens his mouth, then stops when May stirs behind them. The younger girl's voice drifts sleepily. He'd like you, she says. Who? Clara asks. Pa, May whispers. You remind him of him. Elias looks down, the shadow of a smile crossing his face, tired but real. Then he had good judgment, he says quietly. Before Clara can reply, Lydia's voice cuts through the cave entrance. Someone's been here. They all freeze. Elias grabs the rifle and moves beside her. She points to the ground, half-buried prints in the sand, faint but fresh. And near them, wedged under a rock, something small and square glints in the moonlight. He kneels and brushes away grit. It's a tin box, scorched at the edges. When he opens it, there's paper folded inside, old, brittle, the top corner marked with red pencil lines matching the pattern of the first map. Clara's breath catches. The other half. Elias studies the marks, his brow tightening. Not just that, he says. There's more. Beneath the map, a single page written in her father's rough hand. 4 words stand out clear as stars. They can't bury the truth. The wind shifts, carrying the faint echo of hooves down the wash. Elias folds the papers fast. He's talking to us, he says. And Jonas is still listening. Elias tucks the map and note into his coat, eyes sharp on the dark horizon. The faint sound of hooves drifts again, slow, searching, too steady for wild stock. They're tracking the smoke trail, he says. We move now. Clara rises, packing fast. Where to? North Ridge, Elias says. There's an old mining road. Hard to follow if you don't know where it bends. Royce checks his revolver. Jonas will have men on both sides of the wash by sunrise. You'll never make Prescott this way. Elias glances back at him. I don't need Prescott yet. I need daylight between us and them. May stirs, clutching the strap of her satchel. What about the note? What did he mean, they can't bury the truth? Elias looks down at her, his voice low. Your father wasn't just digging for gold. He was digging up names, Jonas's partners, men who sold out their own for war profit. That list is worth more than a mine. Lydia stiffens. So this is why they killed him. Or tried, Elias says. If they had the list, they wouldn't still be hunting. He hid it somewhere near the strike. This map points to it. Royce curses softly. And if Jonas finds it first, he owns every lawman and banker from here to Phoenix. Elias shoulders his rifle. Then we make sure he doesn't. They leave the hollow just as dawn brushes the canyon rim. The air is cold enough to bite. Lydia leads, sure-footed over the rocks. Royce follows with the horses. May stays close to Clara, who glances back once at the cave, the note echoing in her head. Halfway up the ridge, a shot cracks behind them. Stone bursts near Royce's boot. He dives behind a boulder. "They found us!" "Keep moving!" Elias yells. He fires once, twice, the recoil biting his wounded arm. A figure in the wash drops. Another takes his place. Dust rises like smoke. "Royce, take May and Clara up top," Elias orders. "Lydia, with me." They hold the low ground, trading fire into the wash. Bullets hiss past. Lydia aims steady, breath even. One shot, one cry. "Two left," she calls. Elias grits his teeth, the world narrowing to sight and sound, the echo of his own pulse, the cold press of the rifle stock. Then we finish it. Another flash from the rocks below, and the last man stumbles back into the sand, silent. Lydia exhales. Clear. Sevens. Elias lowers his gun, chest heaving. "Not clear," he says. "Just quiet." They climb fast, the girls pulling them over the ridge edge. The sun burns gold now, the desert waking beneath it. Royce looks back down the slope, no riders moving, just smoke curling where gunfire lit dry brush. Clara turns to Elias. "What now?" He unfolds the new map, pressing both halves together. The lines match clean, a jagged canyon cut marked by a single cross near the base of the ridge. He traces it with one finger. "This is where your father's truth sleeps," he says. "And before sunset, we'll wake it." By mid-morning, the desert has turned white with heat. Dust shimmers off the rocks, and the smell of burned mesquite still rides the air. Elias rides ahead, hat low, jaw tight. The two map halves are bound in oilskin inside his coat, close to the wound that refuses to heal. He can feel both throbbing with every step of his horse. Behind him, Clara leads May's mount through the wash, careful and slow. Lydia rides drag, scanning the trail behind with her rifle laid across her thighs. Royce keeps a parallel line on the ridge, eyes sweeping the horizon. They've ridden for hours without a word. When Clara finally speaks, her voice is raw from dust. "If the list is what you say, we can't keep running. We have to take it somewhere it means something." Elias nods once. "Wickenburg first. The telegraph line still runs east from there. If we can get word to Marshal Denton, he'll meet us halfway to Prescott." Royce spits dry dust from his mouth. "Denton's good, but Jonas has reach. Judges, freight clerks, half the deputies south of the Verde. He'll know before the ink dries." "Then we ride faster," Elias says. They push through another bend in the canyon, where the rock glows orange and the air hums with the low drone of cicadas. A hawk wheels overhead, silent and wide. The sound of its wings sets Elias's teeth on edge. "They're near," he mutters. Lydia glances back. "You think Jonas sent more after us?" "He's not a man who waits for luck," Elias says. He sends it. The trail narrows, twisting between two high walls. Royce rides up beside him. "There's a shortcut past Stone Gulch," he says. "Old freight trail, steep but faster." Elias weighs it, then nods. "Show me." They turn into the gulch, a cut so narrow the sky disappears. The horses snort, nervous. Pebbles rattle down the sides. Elias feels the hair on his neck rise. "Quiet," he whispers. Halfway through, the echo of a metal bit rings faintly behind them. Lydia swings around. "They're here!" Gunfire cracks, sharp and close. A slug smacks the wall inches from Clara's head. "Ride!" Elias roars. The canyon explodes with noise, hooves hammering stone, dust choking the air. Royce fires back blind. May clings to her saddle, coughing, eyes wide with panic. Elias turns and fires once, twice, hearing one rider fall. "Keep north," he shouts. "They can't climb the ledge." They burst into daylight at the gulch's end, lungs burning, horses slick with sweat. Royce pulls up first, checking the rim behind them. No movement yet, just a haze of gun smoke and echo. Elias wipes the sweat and blood from his temple. "They're not chasing," he says. "Not yet." Clara looks back, chest heaving. "Why stop now?" Royce answers before Elias can. "Because they're hurting us. Wickenburg's not a refuge, it's the pen." Elias meets his eyes. Then we break the gate. He straightens in the saddle, scanning the horizon where the desert rolls out like hammered bronze. Somewhere beyond that heat shimmer lies Wickenburg, and the only line left between them and the men who burned their home. They ride until the land drops away in waves of red stone and yellow brush. The heat shivers off the ground, blurring the horizon into a dream that won't stay still. Elias rides lead again, head low, pace steady, measuring each mile against how much blood he can afford to lose. By late afternoon, they find the river cut that feeds Wickenburg. The water's thin, more mud than current, but it's enough. Elias signals halt. "Water the horses." 10 minutes. May slides down and sinks to her knees, cupping water over her face. Clara fills the canteens. Lydia crouches on a rock, scanning the ridgeline. "No dust behind us," she says. "Not yet," Elias answers. "Jonas's men don't chase, they close in." Royce nods grimly. "If he knows we're heading for town, he'll have eyes there already." "Then we don't go through town," Elias says. "We go around. Find the telegraph line west of the bridge. Denton's the only lawman left who might listen." He reaches into his coat and pulls the folded halves of the map. The girls lean in as he spreads them over a flat rock. "Here," he says, pointing to the marked canyon base. "Your father buried something, proof, names, maybe gold to keep the law honest. We'll deliver that once Denton knows we're alive." Clara studies the map. "And Jonas?" Elias looks toward the hills, where the light fades to amber. He's coming for all of it. When he finds Red Ridge ashes, he'll follow the river. That gives us tonight. They move again at dusk. The air cools, the world turning violet and silver. Coyotes start their long song somewhere behind them. Royce rides beside Elias. "You really think Denton will believe a story like this?" "He'll believe the paper," Elias says. "Men like Jonas can buy silence, not truth." As the moon lifts, they spot the telegraph poles, thin black lines marching toward town. Elias slows the horses, watching the distant lights of Wickenburg flicker in the basin below. "We split here," he says. Royce and May take the west road, ride through the low scrub, and wait by the old ore cart near the bridge. Clara, Lydia, and I'll hit the telegraph office. Quiet and fast. Royce frowns. "You sure splitting's smart?" "No," Elias says. "But it's what's left." Clara adjusts her hat, jaw firm. "We'll find Denton?" Elias nods. "If he's half the man I remember, he'll hear before they do." The group parts under the moonlight, dust rising around the horses' legs. The desert holds its breath as they vanish into two trails, one toward hope, the other toward danger dressed as salvation. From the ridge above, a shadowed rider lowers his spyglass, eyes catching the faint gleam of metal by moonlight. He turns his horse south, spurring hard, smoke still clinging to his coat. The message has already left the desert. They're heading for Wickenburg. The first shots come at dawn. A crack from the ridge, sharp as a whip, and the air around them snaps alive. Elias jerks the reins, shouting, "Down!" Clara and Lydia dive behind a fallen log. May clings to her horse as it bolts into the scrub. Roy spins and fires back, muzzle flashes flaring against the pink edge of morning. "They found us fast," he growls. "They never lost us," Elias replies, teeth clenched. He peers over the rock and spots dust lifting off the mesa slope, 6 riders, spread wide, moving like wolves. "Jonas's men." Clara reloads with shaking hands. "Can we reach the river?" "Too open," Elias says. "They'll pick us apart before we get halfway." He looks toward the red cliffs ahead, sunlight glinting off narrow ledges and broken stone. "The mesa. We climb it." Royce stares. "That's a dead end." "Not if they don't live to follow," Elias says. They run for the rocks, bullets biting the dirt around them. May screams as a slug cuts through her skirt, grazing her thigh. Lydia grabs her arm and pulls her along. "Keep moving." The climb is brutal. The mesa face is steep and slick with dust. Elias fires back over his shoulder, dropping one rider before ducking behind a boulder. Royce shoves the girls up the ledge, his voice hoarse. "Hands, not feet. Pull." At the top, the land opens wide, a flat table of red stone cut by a narrow gully. The wind howls across it, throwing grit into their eyes. Clara helps May down, then turns toward the slope. They're coming up. Elias drops to a knee, rifle steady. Let them. This time, they climb slow. The first 2 riders reach the base, scrambling off their horses to scale the rock. Elias waits, patient, calm. "Now," he says, and he and Lydia fire together. 2 men drop, sliding back into the dust below. Royce shouts, "More on the left." Clara swings her pistol and fires twice, missing once, hitting once. The echo bounces off the cliffs, making it sound like an army. When the smoke clears, only one figure keeps coming, the man with the scarred cheek and a gray hat pulled low. Jonas Pike's lieutenant, body. He climbs fast, a knife between his teeth. Lydia raises her rifle, but Elias lowers it with one hand. "Mine," he says. Body reaches the ledge and swings up, knife flashing. Elias sidesteps, the blade slicing his coat. He slams his rifle stock into Body's jaw, then drives his shoulder forward. They hit the ground hard. The knife clatters. Body grabs Elias's throat. Elias wrenches free, rolls, and lands one solid punch. Bone cracks. The man sags, breath leaving him in a wet rattle. Elias stands, chest heaving. "That's for Red Ridge," he says. Below, the survivors retreat, dragging the wounded. Royce fires a parting shot into the dust, then slumps beside a rock. "They'll be back," he says. Elias wipes blood from his brow. "Then we won't be here." He looks north. The mesa stretches toward the river, a silver thread under the rising sun. Mount up. We ride for the canyon fork. By noon, we reach Denton or die trying. The wind rises again, carrying the smell of powder and sweat. Behind them, the mesa glows like fire. Ahead, the desert yawns open, endless and waiting. They ride hard across the mesa's spine, the wind tearing at their coats, hooves striking sparks off the stone. Behind them, dust kicks up again, Jonas's men regrouping, smaller now but faster. Elias can hear the echo of their pursuit rolling across the cliffs like distant thunder. "Faster!" he calls, voice raw. "If we reach the river cut, they can't flank us." Royce urges his horse forward, face streaked with sweat and grit. Clara keeps close to May, who clings to the saddle horn, pale from pain but refusing to stop. Lydia brings up the rear, turning in the saddle to fire a warning shot that splits the air and buys them seconds. The trail narrows where the mesa pinches into a ridge. Below, The river twists through the valley like a line of broken glass. Elias points ahead. That draw, there's a pass through the north end. Go. Royce glances back. They're closing again. Elias turns in the saddle and fires, the recoil jolting his wounded arm. A rider drops, horse stumbling. The rest scatter, regroup, relentless. They're hurting us again, he mutters. Toward the open flat. Lydia catches it too. They're trying to box us between the ridge and the river. Then we break through before they set the trap, Elias says. The path dips sharply, shale sliding under their hooves. May's horse stumbles. Clara swings off and helps her, breath short. You can't ride down that slope. Elias reins in beside them. Then we walk. Hold the reins tight and keep low. They descend fast, half sliding, half running. Rock dust fills the air. Royce shouts, "They're coming over the top." Elias spins, rifle up, firing into silhouettes rimmed by the sun. One falls, then another. Lydia drops to a knee beside him, firing with fierce precision, covering the others as they reach the riverbed. Down the bank, Elias orders. They splash through the shallow current, water flashing around their boots. The river curves tight around a bluff, one narrow bend, one chance. Elias points. There, into the cut. They push through reeds and rock into the narrow canyon beyond. The air cools, shadows deepening. Hoofbeats fade behind them, muffled by the stone walls. For the first time since sunrise, silence. Royce exhales hard. We lost them. Elias shakes his head. No one loses men like Jonas. We just bought time. He dismounts, crouching by the water, and rinses blood from his sleeve. The wound's angry, pulsing, but his voice stays calm. We'll rest till sundown, then ride the last stretch to Wickenburg. The telegraph office won't wait forever. Clara kneels beside him, touching the bandage. You're burning up. I've been worse, he says, a ghost of a smile flickering. Lydia kicks at the water, eyes still on the ridge. You think he's following? Elias looks toward the horizon, where heat wavers above the stone. Jonas Pike doesn't follow, he says. He hunts. The words hang in the still air like a warning. Far off, the faint echo of a coyote answers, low, hollow, and too close to be wild. They hit the edge of Wickenburg at full dark, the town a scatter of lanterns and long shadows. Heat still breathes off the hardpan. Elias reins them into a mesquite thicket above the freight road. Same plan, he says. Royce and May to the ore cart by the bridge. Clara, Lydia, telegraph office. I'll tail the street. If Denton's got a man here, he'll show when the wire sings. Royce squeezes May's shoulder. If trouble starts, drop and crawl under the cart. It's iron, not mercy, but it stops bullets. May nods, jaw set. They split. Clara and Lydia cut down an alley that smells of yeast and horse piss and warm bread. The telegraph shack sits beside the assay office, door cracked, lamp burning low. Inside, a thin man with gray hair and fingers black with ink glances up. Closed, he says, then pauses at their faces, the dust, the bandage, the way Lydia's hand never leaves the butt of her pistol. Or maybe not. Who's asking? Clara Whitlock, she answers. Message for Marshal Denton in Prescott. Urgent. The man's eyes sharpen. Name's Fitch. Denton told me to listen for trouble spelled W-H-I-T-L. He breaks off as the window glass ticks, tiny, brittle sounds. A shadow crosses the door. Wire now, Clara says. Fitch swallows, nods, and sits. His fingers fly. Denton, Whitlock girls alive. Jonas moving men. Proof in hand. Need extraction. The key chatters, stuttering fast and bright. A return clicks back. 3 short, 2 long. On way. Hold. Outside. Boots scrape. Lydia's rifle is up before fear can move. Back door, Fitch whispers, pointing to a narrow lane that smells of lard and chimney soot. They ease out and stop. 2 men lean on the corner like they grew there. One grins, teeth small and mean. Evenin', Miss Whitlock. Lydia doesn't give him a name. She gives him 2 quick shots. The grin leaves. The second man fires wild. Brick spits dust into her hair. Clara yanks her back, both of them running the alley as townsfolk shout and shutters snap shut like eyelids. On the freight road, Elias ghosts from a doorway, scanning for the ore cart. He sees Royce first, hat low, standing casual like a man waiting for nothing. He doesn't see May until she shifts, and the shadow behind her moves too. Down! Elias roars. The street explodes. Muzzle flashes punch holes in the dark. Elias drops one man, wheels, and a slug slams into his side, hot and deep. The world tilts. He hits a water trough and bites a curse in half. Stay put! He barks at Royce, who is already dragging May under the cart as shots ping off the iron rim like angry bees. Jonas Pike steps from the glow of the saloon, pale duster clean as a lie, hat brim low. He carries a long-barreled Colt like it's a judge's gavel. Evenin', McCord, he says, cordial as Sunday. You got something belongs to me. Elias pushes up, vision tunneled. You get what the court gives you, he grinds out. Not one word more. Jonas smiles. Court's closed tonight. Footsteps slap stone, Clara and Lydia, breathless, swinging into the street. Lydia drops a rifleman with a snapshot, then grabs the trough and heaves. Clara slides beside Elias, hands on his coat, blood slick under her fingers. Jonas turns his gaze to her, amused and curious, like a man spotting a rare coin. Miss Whitlock, he says. Your father died stubborn, but he died just the same. You hand me the paper, you keep your sisters breathing. The Colt's black mouth looks bigger than the night. Elias feels himself sliding toward the dark. Clara, he rasps. Don't. She rises into the lantern glow, pistol steady, eyes flat as river stone. You burned our home, she says. You hunted us like animals. Jonas steps closer, slow, careful, savoring the distance. I did, he says, and I'll do worse to finish it. Clara's finger tightens. The street holds its breath. And for a heartbeat, every sound in Wickenburg stops to hear whether justice is a bullet or something harder. The lantern light wavers between them, Jonas Pike standing tall in his white duster, Clara Whitlock steady in the dust and smoke. The silence stretches until it hums. Jonas smiles like a man who thinks he's already won. You don't have it in you, he says softly. Clara's eyes don't blink. You're right, she says. But I know who does. Behind her, the sound of a hammer clicks. Elias, pale and half-slumped against the trough, raises his Colt with one hand. You talk too much, Pike. The gun cracks once. The round hits Jonas in the chest, knocking him back a step, the shock more than pain on his face. He looks down, blood blooming through his vest like a red flower. Damn you, McCord, he whispers, then falls to his knees and stays there, the desert finally claiming his breath. For a long moment, no one moves. The echo drifts down the street, fading between the shuttered windows. Then Lydia exhales, trembling. Is it over? Elias lowers the Colt, smoke curling from the barrel. Not yet. Royce helps May out from under the cart, his face pale but eyes alive. We've got to move. Someone will come running. Not if they've got sense, Elias says, pushing to his feet. Clara steadies him. He glances once at Jonas's still body. Men like him leave long shadows. Best to step out before it swallows you. Fitch, the telegraph operator, appears at the corner, clutching a rifle too big for him. Marshal Denton wired back. He pants. Said he's got marshals on the road from Prescott. Be here by morning. Clara nods. Then we stay alive till sunrise. They hole up in the freight shed by the tracks, boards nailed over windows, barrels stacked for cover. May tends Elias's wound while Lydia keeps watch from the loft. Royce cleans his revolver, jaw set tight. The air smells of iron, sweat, and hope held too long. In the quiet, Clara looks at Elias. You saved us, she says. He shakes his head. No, you saved yourselves. I just kept the gate open. Outside, thunder rolls low, promising rain that never comes. The desert wind shifts through the gaps in the wall, carrying the faint scent of smoke from the dying fires behind them. As dawn edges over the hills, hoofbeats echo, steady, measured, official. Elias exhales, shoulders slumping with the weight finally lifting. Marshall's here, he says. Clara watches the sunrise catch on his gray hair, on the scar along his arm, and for the first time in days, lets herself breathe. The last bullet is spent, the last ghost buried. And with the light crawling across the red mesa, they know the desert's long night has finally ended. Marshal Denton arrives with 3 deputies at first light, badges dull, eyes awake, horses lathered from the Prescott Road. He takes in the bodies on the street, the sealed freight shed, the blood drying by the trough. McCord, he says, voice even, you do love a mess. Only when it's worth sweeping, Elias answers. They move fast before the town can decide whose side the morning is on. Fitch unlocks the telegraph so Denton can wire ahead for warrants. Royce leads a deputy to Pike's Mill. Under the office floorboard, they pry up the ledger, a neat book of dirty names, payments, shipments, bribes. Denton flips pages, mouth a flat line. This will sing to a judge. Clara lays the oilskin on the desk. 2 halves of the map. The note in her father's hand. They can't bury the truth. Denton reads it once, then again, slower. He looks up at the girls, at Elias. We ride to Dust Creek. We make a record where it started. By noon, they crest the ridge above the ruins. Wind combs ash across the yard where the barn once stood. The cottonwoods whisper like they're telling the same story to anyone who'll listen. May takes Clara's hand. Lydia stares at the black ribs of the house and doesn't blink. Denton works the scene like a surgeon, measuring, sketching, collecting casings, noting angles and burn lines. He writes names as Royce speaks them, ink biting deep. Pike ordered the fire. Body led the riders. Sutter and Wickenburg took coin to look away. Denton nods, jaw tightening. Sutter gets irons today. Elias walks the yard alone. He stops where the porch used to be, where the step still remembers the shape of boots that won't climb it again. He kneels, presses a palm to the scorched plank, and closes his eyes. When he stands, he's steadier. Marshal, Clara says quietly, my father, if there's a place to mark him, there is, Elias answers. He nods toward the cottonwoods. A small mound sits there, earth new-turned and neat. The girls move as one. May's breath catches. Lydia swallows hard and drops to her knees, palm flat on the dirt. Clara kneels last, shoulders shaking once, then going still. Denton removes his hat. The deputies follow suit. No sermon, no speech, just the wind and the scrape of a pen as Denton adds a line to the record. Whitlock, John, killed in pursuit of the truth, daughters surviving. He tears the page free, folds it, and hands it to Clara. "For the family Bible," he says. Royce stands back from the cottonwoods, hat crushed in both hands. "I don't deserve to be here," he mutters. Elias looks at him, not gentle, not cruel. "You're here because you chose different before the end." Denton clears his throat. "We take statements, then ride for Prescott before dark. What's left here is evidence. What's ahead is justice." He glances at Elias's side. "You good to travel?" Elias pulls his coat shut over the bandage. "Good enough," he says. They turn from the ashes together, 4 riders with badges, 4 with scars, and the long road to a courtroom waiting on the far side of the hills. The ride to Prescott stretches long under the hard blue sky. Dust curls around the horses' hooves and settles on their coats like pale snow. Elias rides a little behind the girls, one hand pressed to his ribs where the wound still burns, but his eyes stay sharp. Each mile north feels heavier, part grief, part duty, part something like peace, finally learning his name. By sundown, they camp near an old creek bend where cottonwoods lean over the water. Denton sits apart, writing in his log by firelight. Royce tends to the horses. Clara kneels by the fire, mending May's torn sleeve while Lydia cleans the rifle that's almost become her second shadow. When Elias sits, the girls fall quiet. For a long while, only the crackle of pine fills the air. Then Clara says softly, "He always told us to finish what's right, even if it hurts." May looks up. "Do you think he knew what would happen?" Elias nods once. "A man like your father knows when the storm's coming. He just hopes his children learn how to stand through it." Lydia stares into the flames. "We stood, but it took losing everything." Elias watches her, the firelight cutting gold through her hair. "Not everything," he says. "You're still here. You've got each other. That's more than most ever keep." Royce returns, hands black with saddle grease. "Marshall says we reach town by noon. Judge'll want the ledger, the maps, the statements, all of it." Clara sighs. "Will it be enough?" Denton looks up from his notes. "Enough to hang Pike's partners and clean half the county. Justice doesn't ride fast, but it rides sure." Elias pokes at the fire with a stick, watching sparks lift into the night. "Then we'll ride sure too." Later, as the camp settles, May hums an old hymn her mother once sang, soft, cracked, half-remembered. Clara joins, then Lydia. Their voices drift through the pines, thin but steady, weaving around the low rush of the creek. Elias closes his eyes. He hasn't heard a sound like that in years, something gentle enough to fill silence without breaking it. When the song fades, he murmurs, almost to himself, "Your father would have liked that." The fire burns low. Stars crowd the dark. Somewhere beyond the hills, Prescott waits with its stone courthouse and sharp-tongued lawmen. But tonight, in the circle of that faint light, they are not fugitives, not witnesses, just a man and 3 daughters of Dust Creek, bound by blood, loss, and the quiet promise that come dawn, they'll carry the truth home. Prescott wakes slow beneath a gray sky. The courthouse stands on the rise above Granite Street, wood steps damp from the morning fog. Elias rides in beside the marshal's column, coat buttoned tight, hat low. The Whitlock sisters follow, pale but unshaken. Royce brings up the rear, his shoulders bowed as though the past itself rides on his back. Inside, the courtroom hums with whispers, townsfolk, miners, a handful of merchants who once called Jonas Pike partner. The judge, broad-shouldered and cold-eyed, raps his gavel. This hearing will determine the extent of criminal conduct surrounding the Dust Creek fire and the murder of John Whitlock. Denton lays the ledger on the table. "Names, transactions, confessions," he says. and testimony from those who survived. Elias feels the girls tense beside him as the clerk calls, "Clara Whitlock." She rises, hands clasped to still their shaking, and steps to the stand. The room quiets. "Tell us what happened the night of the fire," the judge says. Her voice wavers once, then hardens. "Jonas Pike sent his men to our home. He wanted the map my father made, the one that showed where his mine lay. My father refused. They set the barn ablaze. He hid the map in his coat, told us to run." "And your father's fate?" Clara swallows. "He didn't make it. We buried him by the cottonwoods." The clerk notes it down. A murmur runs through the benches. The judge gestures. "Thank you, Miss Whitlock." Next witness, Elias McCord. Elias steps forward, his limp faint but steady. "State your name and occupation." Elias McCord, rancher, formerly Union Cavalry, retired. "And your connection to the deceased?" "John Whitlock was my friend. We served on opposite sides of a war that ended too late for both of us. He was a better man than most I've buried." The judge studies him. "Tell us what you found." Elias explains the rescue, the hidden maps, the confessions Royce uncovered, the chase across Red Mesa. Every word lands like a nail. When he finishes, the room feels smaller. Royce is called next. He doesn't lift his eyes as he speaks of gambling debts, of Pike's promise, of the night he heard the screams and turned back instead of running. "I thought I'd sold my soul," he says. "Turns out it was only on loan." The judge writes, slow and precise. "And your part in aiding the victims afterward?" Royce nods. "I led them out, bought them minutes, spent the rest of me buying peace." When the testimonies end, Denton opens the ledger one last time and reads names aloud: sheriffs, bankers, freight captains, all bound by Pike's pay. Gasps ripple through the crowd. The judge lifts his gaze. This court finds the evidence sufficient. Jonas Pike is deceased, but his partners will answer in his stead. The estate of John Whitlock will be restored to his heirs. May grips Lydia's hand under the table. Clara exhales, tears trembling but unfallen. The gavel strikes once, clean, final. "Justice is served," the judge says. Elias lowers his head, eyes closing as the sound fades. For the first time in years, the word doesn't taste bitter. The courthouse steps breathe a low murmur when the noon bell tolls. Deputies haul two of Pike's partners from the gallery, Lark, with the fox eyes, and Sutter, the Wickenburg deputy who sold his oath. Shackles talk against the floor, a thin metal music that makes Lydia's jaw jump. Judge Harrelson returns and adjusts his spectacles. "Sentences," he says, voice flat as a ledger. Lark, accessory to arson and murder, 20 years at Yuma. Deputy Sutter, corruption under color of law, stripped of badge and the same. The gavel strikes. No one cheers. This kind of justice isn't for cheering. Denton steps to the rail. "One more matter, Your Honor, recognition." He nods toward the benches. Royce Vanner. Royce stands like a man bracing for a blow. The judge skims a note from Denton, then looks over the frames of his glasses. "Mr. Vanner, this court acknowledges your material role in exposing Pike's crimes and saving the lives of Clara, May, and Lydia Whitlock." Royce's mouth opens and shuts. The judge's face doesn't soften, but his voice does. "Redemption is rare coin. Spend it well. You're free to go, under the eye of this court." Outside, light breaks from behind thinning cloud. The square smells of rain that can't quite arrive. Townsfolk watch with the cautious relief of people who've seen too many verdicts go the other way. May touches Elias's sleeve. "Is it over?" "Over enough to breathe," he says. They cross the yard to the telegraph office so Denton can send the final wires. On the boardwalk, Fitch tips his hat, grins sideways. Heard the hammer fall from here. Then, quieter. Glad you're still on this side of the dirt, Mr. McCord. Elias nods. Me too. Clara lingers by the courthouse steps, eyes on the flag that barely lifts in the lazy wind. What now? She asks. Denton answers first. The law finishes its work. Receivership will manage the Whitlock claim until probate. Your father's note and those maps go under seal. He looks to Elias. And these girls need a roof that isn't made of running. Elias feels the old ache flare and settle, like a horse that remembers the spur but stands anyway. He clears his throat. There's land east of Dust Creek that didn't burn. Red Ridge can be rebuilt. If you'll have it. May's smile shows up first, small and stunned. Lydia masks hers with a scowl that doesn't fool anyone. Clara studies Elias, the scar on his forearm, the set of his shoulders, the way his eyes keep counting dangers and still make space for hope. Pa, she says, without meaning to. The word hangs there, bright and startling. Elias blinks once, then nods, slow. We can make it formal, he says, voice rough. Judge is right inside. Denton's mouth tilts. Petition for guardianship's a page and a signature. Adoption follows with time and peace. I can walk it through. Clara looks at her sisters. May is already nodding, lip trembling. Lydia gives a single sharp dip of her chin. Decision made. Elias breathes like a man stepping into cold water. All right, then. They turn back toward the doors they just left, carrying a different kind of case now. No gunfire, no chasing dust. Just ink, paper, and a promise hammered into shape. Over Granite Street the sun pushes free. Prescott brightens by a shade, as if the town itself exhaled. And for the first time since Dust Creek burned, the road ahead looks like something they can choose. They leave Prescott when the ink dries. Guardianship granted. Adoption queued for peacetime. Denton shakes Elias's hand. The judge nods once. A clerk sands the paper till it shines. The sisters stand a little taller. Elias tips his hat. All right, girls. Let's go home. Home is ash and nails. The chimney remembers heat. The yard remembers hooves. The cottonwoods whisper anyway. No one talks for a long minute. Then work starts, the only prayer that makes walls. Lumber from Prescott arrives by wagon. Nails in sacks. A hand pump. 2 mules on loan. Denton rides back to his docket with a promise to write. Royce heads south to pay old debts with labor, not cards. He lifts a hand in the saddle. I'll be back come branding, he says. Clara answers for them all. We will need hands. Days fall into rhythm. Morning water, midday heat, evening wind. Elias lays sill plates straight and true, teaching the line and the level and the way a board wants to bend. Measure twice, he says. Cut once. Same as speaking. Clara learns grain by feel, frame by frame. By the 3rd week, she can splice a joist clean as a hymn. She and Elias raise a new porch together. They don't say what it means. The hammer says it better. May sets up an infirmary from nothing. Shelves, jars, rolled cloth. She boils water with sage and labels careful. A cowhand from the Verde limps in with a split scalp. May stitches him under the shade and sends him off with salve and a list of what not to do. He leaves a silver dollar and word that Red Ridge is standing again. Lydia finds an old doctor's bag at the assay, black leather, cracked, smelling of camphor. She trades earrings for it and does not regret it. Denton forwards a worn army manual from the territorial hospital. Bone, blood, fever, clean tools, cleaner hands. At night she practices sutures on rawhide. Not slip, she swears. Elias shows a latigo hitch and grins when it holds. Same as a saddle, he says. Tie like the horse will test it. A month on, they dress in their best and ride back to Prescott. The courthouse smells of oiled wood and chalk. Denton stands as witness. The judge reads the petition. Elias McCord, do you accept this duty? I do, Elias says, simple, heavy, right. Clara, May, Lydia Whitlock, do you accept this home and name under law? We do, says Clara, steady. May nods, eyes bright. Lydia clears her throat, manages, we do, and almost smiles when the gavel taps. A clerk ties a red ribbon. Papers change hands. Outside, a brass band down the street stumbles through a march. The sisters laugh because the world picked a song anyway. They ride home slow. No chase. No dust behind that isn't theirs. At Red Ridge, the new porch waits, bright raw wood catching sun. Elias lays the papers on a mantle that is only a board for now. Safe, he says. Where they belong. He doesn't sit. He studies the bare patch by the steps. Clara already has the shovel. He liked shade, she says. Said a house without a tree is just a roof pretending. They dig 2 holes, not one. May brings 2 creek saplings, young cottonwoods, thin, brave leaves. Lydia sets stones in a ring. For Pa, she says, and for the folks who need a place to rest a spell. They plant in silence. Elias tamps dirt, ties a soft stake. He holds the trunk a heartbeat longer as if pulse might pass through bark. Drink, he tells the trees. The creek gives. The ground darkens and holds. Weeks turn. A roof takes shape. A door catches and then swings true. Shirts flap on a line like small flags for a country trying its first parade. Strays arrive. A one-eared tabby, a lost calf that learns May's voice, a boy who trades fence posts for stew. The place gathers edges and keeps them. Letters, too. Denton writes of sentences and seizures, and a banker who suddenly remembers the law. Royce sends 2 lines from Skull Valley. Still sober. Still sorry. Good at both. Lydia pins the Army manual above the washstand, pages soft from use. May keeps a ledger of small victories, fevers that break, calves that stand, a night without dreams. Clara sketches practical hopes. Tack room, smokehouse, rain barrels for monsoon. Neighbors start to stop. A widow from Wickenburg brings eggs. May splints her boy's wrist and sends them home with bread. A Paiute woman trades willow bark for flour and shows Lydia a plant that cools fever. 3 rail hands swing by for wire advice and leave hired a week. Work finds work. Hope finds hands. Elias watches the sisters move through this rising shape and feels the burn in his side turn to a pull he can carry. He talks less, listens more. He waits an extra beat before answering a fear. He stands at dusk and thanks the land under his breath for letting them stay. One night the Bradshaws stack stormheads wall to wall. Air goes metal, then breaks. First nails of rain, then ropes, then mercy. They drag barrels into the open and laugh when they overflow. The roof holds. The porch drums. Lydia lifts her palms and says, "This is medicine." May bows her head. Some prayers ask for quiet. Clara turns her face up and lets the last coal stain wash from her hair. Elias lets his hat brim. When the storm walks on, everything smells new. Leaves brighter, porch darker, creak loud like a child set loose. They eat stew and bread that tastes like wood smoke in a clean slate. May reads a line from their father's note. They can't bury the truth. She folds it and sets it above the mantel, not to hide it, but to give it a place. Late summer brings riders who aren't hunters, drovers, a schoolteacher with a cracked voice and a brave spine. Lydia pulls a thorn from a mule and shows a girl how to boil a needle before a stitch. May figures rations that turn lean weeks into enough. Clara bargains for a seed drill and pays fair on both sides. Elias calls it clean horse trading and pretends not to smile when she blushes. The adoption decree arrives by post on a Wednesday, dust on the envelope, stamp crooked as a grin. The paper is plain and perfect, names set where bullets cannot move them. Elias reads it twice, sets it on the mantel beside the note and the judge's line about John Whitlock. May adds a wildflower in a bottle. Lydia taps the frame like testing a barrel. Clara runs a hand along the shelf and says, "There." Before dawn one morning, Elias wakes and sits on the porch steps without a rifle. Habit is there, but it rests. The cottonwoods breathe above, the house breathes within, 3 slow rhythms, 1 to each room. He touches the old ring on the thong around his neck. It warms instead of biting. Footsteps. Clara sits to his right with a blanket. May leans on the post. Lydia drops 2 steps down, arms around her knees. They watch light find the hilltops, then the creek, then the porch. Leaves flicker. A hawk draws a fine line across a clean sky. "I used to think the land kept a bill I'd never pay," Elias says. "Turns out it was saving me a seat." Clara nudges his shoulder. "You earned it." May smiles soft as first light on water. "We all did." Lydia sniffs, blames the cool. "And we'll keep it." He nods. "We will." They rise when the day asks. Fences to pull tight, a calf to doctor, bread to set, a letter to Denton, a lesson Lydia promised a neighbor boy on not fainting at the sight of blood. Work waits like a friend. Before they scatter, Clara hands Elias a shovel. "One more job," she says. "We forgot a 3rd tree." They dig beside the porch, between the first 2. Elias sets the sapling and holds it steady. Clara packs dirt, May brings water, Lydia ties the stake knot tight and sure. They step back. Leaves shake like a laugh. "Welcome home," Elias says to the tree, and means all of it. Sun clears the ridge. Light runs down the boards, across the yard, onto the creek, until everything gleams like it has a secret and is finally ready to tell it. Elias stands with his daughters and watches morning take shape. The scar on his arm is only a line now, a story told and put away. Dust Creek whispers. The cottonwoods answer. And somewhere beyond the hills the trail keeps going, but it starts here. If you've listened this far, it probably means this story touched you in some way. Thank you sincerely for staying with me until the very end. Share your thoughts or your own story in the comments below, and subscribe so you won't miss the next Wild West tale we bring to life.